What's up, guys? Ricci here, bringing you episode 3 of the F1 podcast. And what a race to talk about this weekend. Here with my co-host, Andrew.
What's up?
And my other co-host,
Hi,
Erica.
y'all. Oh, shoot. I came in early there. I was jumping the gun.
We're just so excited to talk about this weekend. As always, make sure to like and hit that subscribe button. Just want to say thank you guys so much for the support the first 2 episodes. And I'm really happy to get back into the live action. Not saying that episode 2 was obviously
It was
different.
fun.
Yeah.
Something different.
It was something different, but also like kind of a cool format. So, but I'd rather do the live, but it made it work. So I think today's discussion is definitely this Belgium Grand Prix, aka actually, before we even start, Andrew, how were those waffles?
Oh, wet. Covered in sauce, my friend. They were like soaked.
They're just soaked. Okay,
I don't think I've ever seen I haven't seen that much rain over a full weekend like that at a race. Like sure back then, like 05 in Indianapolis, maybe 09 Malaysia, but my God, that was so much rain. Like every day it poured.
Well, it brings back the I think it was the F1 memes where it's like Lewis Hamilton's just looking and it just like shows literally 5 days straight of rain. He's like, I got this, no problem. But so let's just talk about this weekend. Not even this weekend, but I would love to talk about Mr. Saturday, but we'll get into that. So the grid of everyone who went. So it was Verstappen number 1, Mr. Saturday, George Russell number 2, Hamilton 3, Daniel Ricciardo 4, Vettel 5, Gasly 6, Ocon 7, 8 Leclerc, 9 Latifi, 10 Sainz, and then I'm not gonna get through the rest, but that was just the top 10. So I'm gonna open it up to everybody. So Erica, Andrew, this weekend, thoughts? Whoever wants to start.
I have to say the highlight for me came on Saturday when just before qualifying, the commentators described the weather as typical British driving. And so if that didn't give you kind of a sense of what to expect going into this, I think it was pretty obvious it was going to be a gong show from the start, and that the weather was just going to compound any issues anyone was having, any, doubts people had coming out of the break. It was just going to amplify that a million times. And that's basically how things went. I mean, qualifying, obviously, it was super entertaining to watch, but, kind of a really crummy way to end it on a red flag with conditions and, Lando crashing out there toward the end, completely shunting it. But, I mean, it was fun to watch. What about you guys? What did you think?
I honestly, so going back to Saturday, so I thought qualifying was awesome. Typical wet qualifying. Really, the car doesn't matter. It's all about the driver. As clearly you can tell, Mr. Saturday took that Williams to a whole new level of heights that I honestly did not think that they were ever going to get to. Like, rain or no rain, like that, it's an incredible achievement by Williams considering where they've been for the past 3 years. But yeah, I think in Q3, I was really surprised when FIA allowed them to go out, considering that in the outlap, everyone was complaining about how turn, I think it was 8, was aquaplaning, and then even in the straights they were aquaplaning, and then Ocon and Vettel were saying like red flag this right now, and then next couple seconds later Lando just shunts. It was weird. I don't know if you've ever seen, like, remember the Schumacher crash in Monaco when back in the day they didn't have cameras that were in the tunnel, so you saw Schumacher go in and then you saw him come back out and he was crashed. It was the same thing for Norris. Like, he goes behind that part of Eau Rouge where the trees were covered, and it goes like yellow flag, red flag, what the hell? And then all of a sudden you just see Lando doing 360s in the middle with all 4 tires off. And it's just like, oh, what the fuck just happened here?
I was like, number one, like, it get back to the point where I think when it comes down to if the track is wet, it all is down to the driver. It's because that's what I even, like, earlier on, it's when it showed it was going to rain all, like, qualifying and the race and even practice, like anything could happen at that point. And like, I'm really happy that I think they said Lando speedy recovery and he was able, couldn't really race on Sunday, but it just goes to show that, yeah, you might be in the best car, but in the end of the day, if it rains, anything can happen. And that's what makes this track so special too, that it is a tough track to start with. And I mean, too bad we couldn't really get a race today, but that's all I say.
And I know that at the end of the day, it was Lando's decision to go for a hot lap and try and qualify on the first lap. But, for FIA, a guy who preaches, a organization that always preaches safety first, I was just kind of a little befuddled why they were allowed to go out that quick in Q3. Considering today, we waited 3 hours for 2 laps behind a safety car, and that was it.
Well, and yeah, like to kind of build off of that, because I mean, the stewards and FIA yesterday, obviously terrible call, especially when you've got multiple drivers and someone like Vettel, who we like to think at this point, has some sway over what's going on and kind of knows what's best out there on the track, saying, we shouldn't be out here, this is awful. But then again today, like you were mentioning, we sat through all that stoppage for the 2 laps, and conditions were worse after 3 hours of waiting than if they had just gone out at the start, got a couple of those laps in ahead of time, or, kind of pushed through. So I definitely think that a lot of people this season have been questioning some of the choices, and this just it just brought that out even more. Not saying that it would have been a great race or a long race if they had gone out earlier, but definitely could have been more than 2 laps behind a safety car if they'd, made some different decisions in terms of allowing people to race today.
I think what they should have done was, I don't know if they're contractually allowed to do this or, what the logistics is, but we just had Japan get canceled.
Yeah.
And there's no race to replace it. So I don't understand why Michael Massey isn't thinking, okay, why don't we just cancel today? Because evidently there's no point. At no point was there a race. Even like Lewis Hamilton, the post-Sunday drive conference was saying that, it wasn't a race and that like the fans should get their money back. Kudos to those fans in Belgium today for, literally spending 3 hours in the downpour, 15 degrees Celsius out. I would have been freezing my butt off just to watch 2 laps around the safety car and calling it a day. I really think they could have tried to reschedule the Sunday component of the race to Belgium in between. I know logistically it might be a nightmare, but wonder if you could just send like a skeleton crew of your team out to the tracks. I don't mean, this is just hypothetically speaking, but you could have had that race in between, replace Japan with just the Sunday of that. Could have kept the qualifying results for the race and just do that, like in MLB, you see it all the time too, with like double headers and whatnot and rescheduling games. And, I understand this is a totally logistically different case where like you're bringing motorhomes, you're bringing millions of dollars worth of equipment over to the race. But I feel there could have been, logistically some opportunity to actually try and have a race that day.
I think it's no secret that the MVP of this weekend are definitely the fans. The fact that they stuck there, or literally there was videos of them, literally the mud slides, and they're just sitting there, just like, we're hopefully we're going to see a car or two, maybe. I do agree, especially with Japan now not being in the schedule. Like this could have easily been pushed, because I'm looking at the weather data for, even because we're recording this couple like 7 or 8 hours after the race, and they're still showing rain all day tomorrow. So I think it could have been possible where they could have just pushed this. I mean, it would have been a logistical nightmare regardless, but I think it could have been possible.
Like this is the closest you've had a constructor in a driver's championship race in the longest time that I can remember. So one would hope that the F1 and the FIA would try to push this race to try and gain that entertainment back up, because the classification rules I think need to get reviewed by FIA, because even Sainz said it, right? Like I think it's like Leclerc, Latifi, and Sainz could all thank Lando, Valtteri, Stroll, Perez. I think also like Ocon can too, because with all the penalties and whatnot, Sainz and Leclerc moved up from 11th and 13th to 8th and 10th, as Latifi moved into 9th, and they had to follow the safety car for 2 laps, and they get points. I'm like, you did nothing to get the points. So I think like because of the whole, it's deemed a classification. You have to race at least 2 laps, but it has to be less than 75% of the total race length, where you can get half points. But even Sainz himself, he's like, I got a half point for literally doing nothing out there today.
I mean,
Yeah. Go ahead, Erica. Sorry.
I definitely thought that was weird because I haven't really, in the last few years at least, seen anything like this happen. And I understand, kind of the points giving half, for going less than that 75%. But it did seem very strange. I mean, I felt kind of bad for George Russell. I mean, yes, he got the podium and, he put in a ton of work on Saturday and it definitely paid off. But if you're going to get your first podium, I think you want it to be something that you got to fight a little harder for. You actually got to race for it and compete against other people. And as much as you get that in qualifying, it's not the same as when you've got, a standing start with 20 cars that are just absolutely gunning it going into a first turn. So I'm super hopeful that if we don't get to come back to maybe a circuit or two during this season, that people are at least still like not going to downplay this victory, because it was definitely a lot of work and a testament to his talent to get to be P2 and be so close to P1. Like,
oh no,
so
I'm giving this P2, like this podium, 100% validation. Like, again, I know you didn't race, but the fact that it just goes to show how much qualifying does actually matter in a race weekend. And yeah, I know you're not competing against, but you're competing against the clock. And that's also a big thing with regards to, especially in those conditions, trying to outmatch everybody, in the sense that, you are in level playing field when it comes to the rain. It's just how better are you in driving in the rain. And Russell put in a cracker of a lap on Saturday. I was like, I was watching, I was like, wow, purple first sector, purple second sector. What the hell? And then all of a sudden he comes across the line one, and I was like, Lewis is gonna catch him. Nope. I was like, oh my god.
We're like, is this
Max
possible?
Stole it at the end. I know. I was like, for a glimmer of a second, I was like, oh my god, we're gonna actually have a Williams pole. And I was about to jump out of my seat.
Just to add on to that, and I missed the press conference. I think it was on Thursday where they had Russell and Bottas. I think you might have someone have to correct me on the pod.
It was.
Okay, thank you. Sweet. God bless. Anyways, but just that awkwardness, because now we got to talk about Mercedes' second seat, because if this weekend was not a testament of just how Russell is as a driver, imagine him in a Mercedes seat. Like, it's gonna be. Oh, I'm just getting excited thinking about, like, and especially because Bottas had the 5 grid penalty. Which I don't know. Do you think this throws more fuel to the fire of the conversations with Toto Wolff?
I definitely think that it does, because I mean, as much as Bottas has always been, a great addition to the Mercedes team and has performed very well, I think this season we're starting to see that there's a lot of competition and a lot of fire coming up the grid from some of these younger drivers who are hungry for a seat on one of those primo teams. And the joke was always that the podium was Hamvert bought for the longest time, but we weren't seeing that kind of consistency from Bottas in the last while in between. I'm sure they were really hoping that he would at least get like a P1, P2, like front of the grid, so that with that grid penalty, it wouldn't be as detrimental to his race.
Yeah.
But obviously, he's not doing so hot, and to have someone in what's deemed, an inferior car that's typically toward the back of the grid performing so well, I mean, it's showing that, like we said, it comes down to the skill of the driver. And clearly on a track like this, we've got a young guy with so much talent who's just crushing it. And if they're on that level playing field, he's now kind of usurping. I don't know if you guys can hear that.
Is that?
As everyone on the pod knows, our special guest, Erica's cat, has made appearances in episode 1, maybe episode 2, but just made a great appearance on episode 3. So we're very happy to have the cat.
I honestly thought the wind was shaking your windows for both.
No, he's tearing around the house full tilt in a way that our drivers did not get to today.
The weather left Spa and just brought it to Canada and just in the GTA surrounding area.
But anyway, like we said, it's that level playing field, and I think it's making it very clear for Mercedes. You know, we've got two drivers, and one of them we could promote to the team who's doing really well, and the other one who has really been given every resource and opportunity to succeed, who's not really pulling their weight the way that I'm sure the team would like, and that Toto would like as well.
I do really think though that it'll depend. Honestly, it'll depend. If Russell gets the seat, it'll definitely be Toto's decision. But if Valtteri gets the seat, I really think it was because of Hamilton. Because I think as we saw this past summer, like Valtteri did confirm that that Hamilton wants him to be his teammate, and you can tell in the post race press conference today there's a little animosity between I think Hamilton and Russell. Like in the chat, you could just tell that Hamilton was not uncomfortable with being there, but I think it was more so the whole situation of not being able to race as well. But I don't see them two being the greatest teammates, and it's a weird sport, F1, right? It's an individual game played in a team atmosphere.
Yeah, because you never succeed. Well, you have two drivers, but in the end of the day, if you had a decision as the team principal, who am I going to put my money or all my resources in? You can't split it equally 50-50, unless maybe if you have a constructor strategy. But if you're like Mercedes, where you know that all my money is going to go on to Hamilton and Bottas is going to be a team player, which I think no secret, my opinion. I think he should challenge Hamilton more. But yeah, it's unfortunate. Like I wish there'd be more competition in Mercedes, and I would love to see Russell, because I think that would push Hamilton to I don't know. I just think it would just throw the more fire to the more fuel to the fire. Sorry, it's just we're doing this episode literally 7 hours after the race. Well, not really a race, but you know what I mean.
A little tootle around the track that they had today. No, I think that's a good point. And I mean, when I think back over some of the changes we've seen on the teams in the last few years, typically you've had that star driver who's kind of starting to age out a little bit and isn't performing as well. And that's not the case with Hamilton. He's still extremely competitive. He's still showing up on podiums. It's not like what McLaren was in 2018 when Alonso was kind of, debating retirement and everything and not quite as competitive. And it's not like Renault when Danny Rick moved over and Hulkenberg was still on the team, and we all know how that went down. So I think that's a big thing. I mean, if Hamilton wasn't really proving as useful anymore, and maybe they were in need of someone to start developing sooner, knowing that he wasn't going to be competitive, they'd probably be jumping on the Russell bandwagon a lot sooner. But I agree. I think the team is overall pretty happy with how things have gone. And they're going to do what they can to keep Hamilton happy, because he's such a key part of their success now, and I think still part of their success plan going forward. And it's going to be a while before that changes in any way, shape, or form.
Very good point there.
Let's talk about what's other than Nikita Mazepin getting fastest lap at one point.
Hey, I was gonna say, who's your driver of the day? Because mine is Nikita for setting the slowest, fastest lap in the F1 hybrid era.
As soon as I saw that little purple stopwatch appear, I was killing myself laughing on the couch, honestly. I mean, it's so ridiculous. It makes sense, because if you're further back in the grid, you can give yourself a little more space between the cars and stuff to rev up, but my goodness.
It won't matter for points because he didn't finish in the top 10, but just the fact that he won fastest lap is incredible. And that's why I just make F1 so good. Like the memes are the best coming out of that.
I'm still surprised, honestly, that we didn't get a Mazepin yesterday during qualifying. Like, truly, I was thinking there was a time.
Yeah. It's because his old chassis wasn't good enough for him. So
still. Again, we're talking about the skill of the driver, and I feel like we can't blame every instance of that on the chassis.
Well, good carpenter always blames his tools, correct? So, or her tools.
Yes. Okay. So I wanted to talk about Nikita Mazepin, but I was going to mention Red Bull because obviously the incident with Perez at the start and crashing and his gearbox, and blessing in disguise, like, to the Red Bull engineers and their team to able to fix his car right away and be able to go like that's it's just crazy that how teams, if there is an incident, like how fast they can be, for the most part, be able to fix a car right away.
Checo really screwed this up for Red Bull, all things considered now, because he would have had 7th.
Yep.
And what's half points for 7th? Anyways,
I'm still trying to figure it out.
They would have been closer to. They would have been close again. They would have pushed. I think the gap is now 7 points in the constructors, but it would have been 5. And every point matters at this stage of the season. So Perez, like, shunting in the, I forget what turn, but really just coughed up a couple of key crucial points for Red Bull there. But to your point, Ricci, it is actually incredible that how quick that these teams can put the car back together. Like, even last year at Hungary, when Verstappen went on the wall on his way to the grid, they fixed the car right in his spot, and they got it down in time for him to race, and they finished P2 that day. So it is really incredible how the F1 engineers, like, their job is crucial to the success of a team.
I thought it was so interesting to hear that discussion too, because it's not a situation you see a lot where someone's trying to, very quickly fix a car to get it back out there. I mean, it turns out they had a lot more time than they thought they did. But it was so interesting to hear because, at first some of the stewards were like, no, you withdrew the car from the race. Perez can't rejoin now that you've got this extra time. But to then turn around because it hadn't officially started, so it's not like he had outside help or anything else had been going on, and then to let him in. I think that was definitely confusing for a few people. I'm mostly speaking for myself here because I was like, wait, which is it? I don't understand. But I think it's, like, the Red Bull team definitely deserves a hand for that. I also think that, I guess, just the crew at Spa too, because the fact that they even got the car back fast enough after it was cleared from the track to then fix it up is pretty exciting. So I'm just curious, if we run into this kind of weather again later in the season, will we see more of these types of incidents with pit lane starts for people that had some necessary work done on the car, or are they going to start coming down with more rules for it, since this isn't necessarily the first time we've seen this happen?
Do you think Toto emailed his complaint to Michael?
I think you told him to check his email a couple times. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how.
I think Michael turned his phone, blocked his calls. Maybe. I think one of the cool things that I thought about, with all these delays, is the amount of strategy and thinking of the teams. They said, okay, so we're gonna do, because they're always checking with the FI. I again, as I said in the first episode, I love the fact that now Formula One is now allowing those conversations with the FIA and the team principals. And so each team is talking to the teams and saying, okay, so how many laps do I need to do? And all the psychologic, all the everything, just thinking, sorry, just words are not helping today. Just everybody kind of just thinking, okay, so if I have this many laps left, okay, this is what I need to do. It was just, I found that really interesting today, because as they're all sitting around doing nothing, they're like, okay, well, we can't just sit around and do nothing. We got to figure out, how do we plan this?
No, I told you. Yeah, I told you, because it was all like, because it was like taking laps off of, because I think around the safety, I forget what the rule is. It's like the amount of laps you did behind the safety car, you take that off plus another lap from the total laps that you're supposed to race, and then that would adjust. So I think at one point it was like supposed to be 39, but also there was like a 3-hour rule too, where a race has to be completed and finished within 3 hours. But they're allowed to stop the clock in order to try and run the race. And that's why I think we've ever saw our first ever timed event at an F1 race, because there was an hour window in which they wanted to race. And they raced for a solid 3 minutes, 27 seconds.
I still can't believe that this is how that ended, but my goodness. Like, And I think that was kind of interesting too, because I know at first people weren't sure if that formation lap and everything really counted as starting that 3 hour clock. Because I think if they hadn't run that beforehand, that 3 hour clock could have started later. It's not like it had to be at 3 p.m. local time, but not that it would have made a difference in any way, shape, or form given the weather, but it was definitely. I think it's also nice as a viewer to hear some of those conversations happening. Just so no one's like left in the dark, and if you suddenly get a notification, 10 minutes till the race resumes, people are able to kind of jump on it instead of reacting a little bit late, and seeing Hamilton get his little booties dried off again and stuff like that. So.
Speaking about this weekend, can we just take in appreciation, not only that was circulating on Twitter, the Office themed summarizing this weekend, but Pierre Gasly's hairdo.
His hair.
I would say, what is your favorite moment of that whole like in between the race footage? Like with Erica's is Gasly's hair.
It's up there. I was really surprised because one clip that I loved, at least on the feed I was watching, was that Ricardo was trying to get a wave started with people in the bleachers. But like people weren't paying attention to the fact that he was like, cramming himself between this gap and the barrier to be like, oh, everybody come up. And they're all just staring at him. He's tried like 4 or 5 times, and then like everyone's later like, you finally got them to join the wave. And I'm looking like, they were showing that feed for a long time, and I didn't see anyone standing to join that. But
I also love Danny Rick's like Anchorman reference there on the radio to start. He goes to his mentor. I don't know if you know this, but it's my 200th race. Or Grand Prix. His race engineer goes like, oh yeah, I didn't know that. He goes like, yeah, I'm a pretty big deal in this neck of the woods. And then he goes during the break just to try to like pulls like the UFC chokehold on his race engineer. And with such a funny contrast compared to like Danny Rick and Lando, because Danny Rick is like up and at him, joking around the paddock, and Lando's just there having a snooze.
I was wondering how much coffees and teas that were people drank during those like that time. I think my highlight was just watching the Ferrari team, like Carlos Sainz, the tweet. It's like hi. He just tweeted hi, and it's just him sleeping in the corner, or him and Leclerc holding the umbrellas, just looking awkward as hell. I'm doing the face reaction if people no one can see it, but like I'm trying to imitate the tweet. Like,
gotta describe it for the people because we're not showing the video. But honestly, I think that at least they kept it entertaining, and it wasn't like they were just cutting to old footage or like putting the feed on hold, because it was hilarious to watch what was happening. I mean, like, you had Norris, who at one point, like, the camera's recording him, so he's just like, two can play this game, and recording them right back and popping it on Instagram. Like, we had Vettel, who just looked like he was pondering every life choice he's ever made that led him to this moment.
And then he goes into like the Haas paddock and starts playing 202 footy with Mick.
I just pulled the video up just to see it. Yeah, I was just about to talk about that.
Can we also state in the fact that we do not deserve Sebastian Vettel?
No, not at all. He's just a gem of a human being, and I feel like a genuinely amazing person, even off the track and stuff. Like,
it's funny how much flack he got in his career early, but that's what you get when you win all the time. And then, people don't see the humanitarian side in him. And I really hope he races for years to come.
I think for me is definitely, I think maybe it was like when Michael Schumacher was racing and kind of having that fatherly figure on Vettel, and it's making him want to be that fatherly figure to Mick. And yeah, I totally agree. As he got older, you can clearly tell he's become the dad, and he wants to be, what is it? He's the race director. He's cleaning up after races. He's checking in on Lando to make sure he was okay. Like, there probably is a Hall of Fame, but like, he should be on first ballot if this was like kind of like an NHL or something. That's my opinion.
Oh yeah, no question about it.
I'm also wearing an Aston Martin shirt, so like I might be cheating Ferrari today, but like I think who does not love Sebastian Vettel? Write in the comments your thoughts. Just waiting for those comments, but they're gonna come. We're gonna hear some people's opinions, but on that note, sorry, Erica, you were about to say something.
No, I was just gonna say, if we've got Daddy Vettel running around there talking to everyone, how good do you think his dad jokes are?
Well, probably top notch. I would say top two in the whole grid. I think Danny Rick has got some pretty good dad jokes.
Yeah.
But I think Vettel's up there for sure.
So a couple of listeners actually submitted questions. We'll take questions, and we love to hear it.
I love it.
Yeah. So on the weekend, I got a message from one of my friends, and he said, if there was somebody that you would have to grab a beer with from Formula One, who would it be and why? So I'm going to pick, just because I'm going to go with Erica. Who would you have a beer with and why?
I mean, okay, so I think personally, like, Danny Rick would be someone that it's just a hilarious time to have a beer with. Like, obviously, he loves to talk about racing and his career and all that, but that you could just make stupid jokes with. But personally, because I love every single one of his press conference appearances and how no nonsense he is, Kimi Räikkönen is mine for sure.
Oh my God, Kimi.
Oh, I don't know why, but I love just kind of that awkward standoffish comedy. Like, I mean, we saw the Office reboot, all that stuff, like anything that makes my skin crawl. And I feel like just watching him interact with people at a bar while like asking whatever dumb question pops into my head, I'd just be killing myself laughing the entire time. And it would be great. So yeah, the Finn, Kimi Räikkönen.
What about you, Andrew?
I think who I go with. There's two ways of looking at it. Like, one, if you want to have just an all around good time, and I think for the stories, Vettel would be incredible because he just knows so much about Formula One. But I'd also like to sit down with Lewis Hamilton, because I think in this today era in age, we really despise greatness and it being done in real time. Like, you see everyone is not a big fan of Tom Brady in the NFL, even though he's won so many championships. And I think like we reflect on it too much when it's over and we don't enjoy it while it's happening. So it would be really cool to sit down with Lewis and just hear his entire story about how he turned, from rags to riches effectively, and being like the number one guy for so many years, and how much pressure that is. And he's a pretty good jokester, I find, too, if you get a good laugh. So I'll say Lewis Hamilton, because I think it'll be a really interesting conversation to have.
I feel like for me, I actually was like, I was debating when this question came up. It's like, do I want a Danny Rick because of his personality and just being that jokester and just being that, as you said, Andrew, I think in the first episode, what the sport needs, someone just like a very relaxed guy, can be very fun. But I feel like for me, it would be Vettel, because just his history in this sport, the fact that he can name every driver from basically who won F1 to the start and then to now, and just hearing some of the stories of just everything that he had to experience, whether it was at BMW, whether it was at Ferrari, or where, oh my gosh, now I'm pulling
Toro
Rosso, thank you.
Yeah.
And so just like hearing his stories of just him going from 4-time champion to where he is now, it'd just be quite interesting just to hear. I feel like I wouldn't even want to talk. I just want him to I'll grab a Peroni, just have 2 Peronis, and like, just Vettel, you just talk the whole time, please.
Okay, then follow-up question to that question. Okay. Which team principal, so Zach Brown's not included because he's a CEO, but which team principal would you want to have a beer with?
Is it
John, both of you? So Johnny, you go first.
Oh gosh.
Or if Erica has one, she can go first.
If anyone's watching, we obviously don't have a video yet, but we're all kind of just like puzzled because this is really good. Because I actually don't know. Like, do I want to have a beer with Toto Wolff?
So for me personally, it would be Christian Horner, because I just think Christian Horner is I think he's a pretty funny dude. And, maybe we get a Spice Girls concert out of it. too. You never know. Maybe you get tickets to Spice Girls concert as well. But no, I think Christian Horner's like, he's seen a lot in the game, in the sport, and I think he's just, he tells it like it is in interviews, and I just think it'd be a really interesting conversation to pick his brain regarding the whole sport.
For me, I have to say Steiner. Honestly, like, like Haas, I mean, obviously the guy's got an incredible passion for the sport and always has. I mean, to basically, try to build a team from the ground up by just reaching out to people you think might be interested in sponsoring and kind of giving you the funds to do it. But just, I mean, anyone who's watched Drive to Survive, especially season one, where there's so much of a focus on the team, like, I feel like he's just got some amazing quips and will just kind of say whatever comes to mind. And I don't know. I feel like it would be a very interesting conversation and also just hilarious because, we're all standing here looking like a bunch of wankers is I think one of my favorite lines of all time. So hoping for a couple little gems like that to come out along the way.
I would like to pick, but not those brain of just like how he was. I don't think he would say it, but how 2020 was, and just the stress of just not, especially for someone like Ferrari, just to hear like how he was able to go through that and deal with the Italian media and everything. But I also I think for me it would be Toto Wolff just to hear how someone from just his experience and able to be like a championship team year after year and just his discipline. That would probably be like, okay, well, I want to, whatever Toto did, I just need to do it for whether if it's Formula One or just for work related. Like, please tell me how you're able to pull this off.
And the Germans know their beer, so you'll be having a good time.
Do you have a favorite German beer, Andrew?
If I said all of them, that kind of sound bad, but like Hofbrauer Munich is really good. Hofbrauer Munich is really good.
I like the Lowenbräu stuff.
Oh,
I don't know my German beers, so I can't contribute to that.
So I guess so we talked obviously about the race and just had some fun fan questions. So leading into next week, what's the track next week? I am blanking.
Zandvoort. I think it's the new track. I don't know if they've ever raced at Zandvoort, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's the Dutch Grand Prix. Yes, I have not heard about this. Actually, no, I saw this today because people were like, why don't we just all get in cars and drive up to the Netherlands and race there? Because the weather was probably much better.
And it's only like 3.5 hours away from Spa, right? So it's not like it's the biggest drive.
And plus, it's like one of the few courses that's going to have it has an oval. A section of the track is oval racing too, so it should be interesting.
Yeah, I really wish I could say like what's my expectations for next week. Just like basically just don't think about this weekend. Just look fresh for each team. Just like you shouldn't really count this weekend, unfortunately. But Red Bull still needs to do what they have to do. Mercedes just needs to fight Verstappen at the front. I mean, okay, like the constructors is still all over the place on third place with Ferrari and McLaren. Just where do you want to put your eggs?
Honestly, for me, I think it's gonna be a whole new track. And I don't think I think it's gonna be a first time for everybody. So I'm gonna put my money on the experienced drivers in the good cars. So I'm gonna give Lewis an edge. I give Checo an edge, even though he had a bad weekend this weekend. But again, like experienced drivers who have raced at hundreds of tracks in their career. Like I even give a lot. I know a lot of it depends on the car as well, but I think to extract the entire performance, the experienced drivers are going to pay off. Sorry, Eric, I cut in front of you there.
Oh gosh, don't worry about it. This is what podcasting is. It's just everyone being like, my opinion now. So anyway, yeah, so I definitely agree with that. I think we're going to see a really interesting kind of battle this week, especially between Ferrari and McLaren. I think, things are kind of tight. The drivers, we've seen, a really good showing had it not been for Norris shunting between both he and Danny Rick, with Danny Rick having his best showing since joining McLaren. Maybe starting to kind of figure things out a little bit better. And again, Danny Rick's been around the circuit for a while and knows how to prepare a little bit better for a new course than some of the less experienced guys. So I'm putting my money in them over Ferrari. I mean, especially I was kind of a little bit disappointed in Leclerc this weekend during qualifying. I expected more from him with, how he's done previously at Spa and, just kind of some of the momentum he was trying to build over the course of this season so far. Um, so I'm really hoping we get another strong showing from McLaren, that we actually get to see McLaren race, because it would be really awesome to see both of them putting a little bit more pressure on the front of the grid as compared to what we've seen in the last few weeks. But ultimately, I think we're going to see another aggressive start to the race between Verstappen and Hamilton if they're anywhere near the front, because they're only 3 points away from each other for the Drivers' Championship right now. And we know Max is going to be hungry after missing out a couple weeks in a row, and Hamilton is going to be wanting to maintain that lead and grow it as much as he can going into this back half of the season.
So about to backtrack there. I'm going to go back to this weekend. So like, does Red Bull even celebrate? Like we all know that Russell is celebrating. Like there's no question about it. But like, do they even celebrate that he won? Like,
I think it just comes down to the standard that they've set for themselves at this point, especially doing so well the last few years. That to them, I mean, for Williams, this is an incredible feat, regardless of how you reach it. But for Red Bull, they're just kind of like, well, this sucks. We like rebuilt a car from scratch, and we don't really get to see any of this payoff or any of the racing, especially when you had a driver at the front of the grid being like, no, it's fine. I can race. So I expected to see a few more like high fives and stuff, even if it wasn't super over the top. Just like, hey man, we made it through the day and no one died on those 2 laps we did. But and for getting Perez back on the track, but
I think it's also like it's just an emotionally draining day, because adrenaline's high at the start. They couldn't race. You have like a 3-hour break, and then we kick the adrenaline back up to race. You race for 3 minutes, and then kind of stop. And it's just it's anticlimactic in a way to win. So I think that's probably where Red Bull's mindset was, is that like, yeah, it's a win's a win, but I know they'd rather race and they'd rather see, again, to Erica's point, it would be nice if Checo could have gotten from 20th into the points and really rewarded the team for all their hard work to get the car ready, which should not be overlooked at Red Bull. I think like the fact that the engineers were able to get the car ready for a race condition was an incredible feat today.
And because like Checo has proved himself to come back from the back and at least get into the points or even win the race. I think he'll be hungry to pull that off next weekend and just really want to show that he's still loved in the team and he can still get points and at least challenge in constructors. So leading to our last part of the podcast is we're calling it the podium predictions. So none of our podium picks this week actually happened. I think I had Hamilton, Verstappen, and Lando, but I was hoping for a Ferrari. So I went 0. Erica, did you go 0 as well?
I was 0 because I was the same as you. I said Hamilton, Verstappen, and then Norris would be 3rd. So I'm 0 for 3 on that one.
Andrew, how did you do?
I went Hamilton, Verstappen 1, 2, and I jumped into the Ferrari deep end, and I had Leclerc finishing 3 because the whole engine package upgrade really got to me, and I thought there were going to be some form of update. But I did also predict Danny Rick top 5, and he finished 4. So if I don't know if I get like a half point or it doesn't really count, sort of idea.
I'll give him a half point.
In the comments. Let us know if that should count.
You know what? We'll let the people decide.
Let the fans decide. They should be able to decide.
The people know best. So your predictions, Erica, who do you think is going to be on the podium next week?
Next week, I mean, we've got
next
Max.
Weekend. Sorry,
this is technically his home race in a way because it's in the Netherlands, obviously. So I'm really hoping that he's able to pull out a win. I don't think this is any secret to anyone who's talked to me. I want him to win the championship this year, and I would love to see him actually be able to race and kind of go full throttle on this awesome Red Bull car for a race, which we haven't seen in a while. I am going to keep probably like the same people as this week, but just change it up a little bit. Again, I think it's going to really come down to he and Hamilton. So I'm thinking Hamilton's going to be 2nd. He's going to be really wanting to kind of chase those points and try to put the pressure on. But I'm hoping that between the adrenaline and the excitement of actually getting to race for the first time in almost 2 months for Max, if you think about not really getting to race at Hungary and Silverstone. That we'll see the two of them up there, Max 1 and then Hamilton 2. And then I'm going to say Lando 3 again because I just love Lando, and I think he proved this week, with the exception of obviously, that crash, that he's a very skilled driver. He's doing super well this year, and he can continue to show that the McLaren car is definitely not to be overlooked this year. So I'm hoping that will be the podium. Not that different than what I predicted for this week, but of course, it's a bit of a gong show. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? Anything can get flipped on its head in a moment's notice. And maybe we'll see, the Ferraris pulling ahead with this engine upgrade, or we'll see George Russell just appear out of nowhere and dominate this race. So, but all told, I'm thinking Verstappen 1, Hamilton 2, Norris 3.
Andrew, what's your thoughts? What's your podium predictions?
Good question. So I, like Erica, agree that Verstappen will win his home race. There's gonna be a lot of orange in the crowd this weekend. It's a fast track. He loves the fast circuits. I'm just reading what the F1.com says about what's the circuit like. It's been quoted as really quick, pretty insane, crazy, and old school were the words that were used by the current crop of F1 drivers when to describe Zandvoort. So I think Max will be number 1. I am going to go with a Lando 2.
Okay.
Because I think he actually had a really good showing this weekend, and he really showed the pace in the car until the shunt. So, Q3 aside, I really think he Q1 and Q2 he had one of the fastest cars this weekend. And I will go with Hamilton 3. In the event that this could provide Red Bull an opportunity to go ahead in not only the drivers' championship, but in the constructors as well.
So you're going Verstappen, Lando, and then Hamilton?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Just writing this down so I mentally note. So I'm going to go, because home races are better for the home teams. I don't know the stats on that. I'm just probably making this up as I go. I'm going to go Verstappen 1. I'm going to go Hamilton 2. And I'm going to go Checo 3.
Oh, I like the pick.
So I have a feeling that Checo's going to fight back, and he's going to get on the podium next weekend. So that's my thoughts.
Love it.
I'd be so excited if you did. I think that would be great.
So there you have it. So the predictions: Erica, Hamilton 1, 2, Verstappen, Lando 3. Andrew's got Verstappen 1, Lando 2, Hamilton 3, and then I literally didn't write it down. Verstappen 1. Did I say Hamilton? Yeah, Hamilton 2, then Checo 3. Okay, so that is going to be my predictions. And at the end of the season, we might have a mini trophy that we'll give out. I actually don't know any trophy stores near me, but I will have to find one.
So 2 things. 1, there is a trophy store near me. I think
great.
Still. It may have become a cheesecake shop, so I need to double check that.
we could do like a little cake.
I could give you guys a celebratory cheesecake.
I think that works too.
And 2, I said Verstappen 1, Hamilton 2. Put some respect.
Oh, sorry, my bad. Okay, see, this is what. Just making
this
sure.
is why we review.
Yeah. Okay. So if I can't find a trophy, we'll go with the celebratory crowning achievement cheesecake in the flavor of your choosing.
Love it.
So,
I do love cheesecake. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Same amount of choices, so prepare yourself for that one.
Everyone has a sweet tooth. There's no question about it. So here we have it. This is episode 3. And I just want to thank everybody for the support. Erica, Andrew, and myself really appreciate it. We love all the views. We all love all the likes, and send your questions, send your thoughts. We love to hear them so we can talk about it in the next episode. As always, it is your host, Ricci, and my co-host, Andrew.
Thanks, everybody.
And Erica.
Hey, I got it right this time. Thanks.
Yes, exactly. And we will see you guys in episode 4 in probably a week's time, where we're going to talk about the Dutch Grand Prix. So hope you guys like that video. Hope you guys like this video. Hit that subscribe button, like us on YouTube. And as always, I stream on Twitch, so I'll be streaming some Formula One. I promise I'll try to post this week. Just been very busy, but and I'll see you guys in episode 4. Thanks again, guys.